Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. I'm Dave Weiss, and today on the show, I think I need a new car. Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. In the sense that I have a branch that splits into two shoots in here, so I'm probably going to cut this thing off right about here this fall. I've taken my knob cutter and I've gotten rid of some of that. So I just put them on the bottom, growing upwards into the bag. We fill it up with trees and then we water as we need to. Try to get rid of those air pockets. I'm a teacher by day, bonsai enthusiast 24/7. It's MEA week in Minnesota, which means teachers get Thursday and Friday off this week. So my first assignment this morning, I went to go look at some more trees, of course. Let's see what I found at the nursery. So there you have it. We got them out of the car, into the backyard. Let's organize them up a little bit. So the first thing that I like to do when I get my new trees is to document right away, because if I don't document right now, there's a good chance that I'm gonna dig into this tree, put it into my garden for the winter, repot it if it's in the spring. I'm just gonna get to work, because I just want to get to work. I gotta slow down, still working on slowing down. We're gonna document everything. So I have the iPad app, Bonsai Album, and it's a free app. You can get a higher level for your computer, it costs about 25, 30 bucks, free for the iPad and phone. And I'm gonna take a picture of it, I'm gonna measure it, I'm gonna tell when I bought it, where I got it from, and I'm gonna do all that logging first so it's in there, and so when I go back to look at it later, I know what it is, where I bought it from, and all that information. But if I don't do it up front, it's not gonna happen. So we're going to take some pictures first, and our first one up here is the Degroot Arborvitaes, or Spire Arborvitae. So one thing that's really nice about the Bonsai Album app is that when I do put in my information right away, if I got the tag still from the nursery, I'm going to get the name, the scientific name, which I'm horrible at and will never remember, and I can put it on in here. Now the app does a good job of having a lot of varieties available in here, but if it doesn't have the variety, you put in the variety. So you can put in Norway Spruce, and then you can go ahead and put in the Pacea, I don't know how to pronounce that, Arborvitaes. So you can put the scientific name and the new name, and you created a new category right in here for this app. So it's very, very versatile, and you can add a whole bunch of things. So I've taken my picture, I've added the information, I'll get some measurements in a little bit, and we're good to go. We got a good start to the demographics, if you will, the information on this tree that'll make sure if I ever sell it someday or people inquire about it, I'll have some good information on the tree. So the other nice thing about all the data in here is I can look right off the card, and though I'm going to grow this as a bonsai, and I know we do some different things within care of a bonsai tree and a bonsai pot, I'm going to look right on here and see what this tree needs, and I'm going to be able to type it into the categories here. This is the tree. This is a dwarf burning bush, and it says right on here, full sun to full shade. There's not too many places this bush won't grow, so I'll be able to put it anywhere in my yard. So I love that about this variety. It's super, super versatile, and it grows very, very fast. I've had some in previous homes, and they can just grow like a weed, and they have such brilliant reds in the fall. So this one is obviously started to turn, got some really nice reds up here, and just a pretty tree to have in your collection. So I'm going to go ahead and I just loved the thick trunk on this guy, so we picked it up. All the information's here for us to look back at. Certainly worth the free cost of this app. So every once in a while, well, I should say all the time, I kind of go on a limb and just buy a tree. My brother out in Brooklyn has a beautiful cherry tree in his backyard. I tried to take some cuttings from it, brought it back to Minnesota. It didn't work. So back in the discount pile for a pretty nice price, we got this Bali cherry tree. Now I don't know much about the cherry trees, so I'm gonna have to do some research on there. And as I stand here, you can't even see the tip of the tree. It's about 8 feet tall, very big pot, pot number 10 or so. And you know, we're gonna cut this thing down way down here. I don't need that top part, but it had a nice big thick branch here, about 1.5 feet up. So if this was the top of the tree, I'd have some nice ramification. And the only thing I don't know about this cherry tree is if it's going to backroot very well. But looking at the tree out in the field of the nursery, you can look at the branches here and you can see some back budding up top here. You look at the branches here, there's some back budding right here, these guys right here. So I'm assuming if it back buds here, I could hopefully get some back budding here. If I take down the apex of the tree here and then balance out that energy, we'll see if we get some back budding next year. It's worth a try. Got a good deal on it, so we're gonna see if it works. I debated this one 3 different times walking through the nursery. Only one in the nursery in the discount section like this. This is a Japanese maple. I'm gonna have to protect this over the winter. Zone 5 is where it's hardy. Minnesota's in that 4, if I'm not mistaken. It's got a nice, beautiful, thick trunk. And we're gonna be able to chop this tree, being the deciduous maples grow very, very fast and can be chopped pretty low. I'm gonna be able to chop all this growth up here and have this nice looking tree already after a years of growth. We'll let it just bush out like crazy. It has this growth down here, which could become the primary branch. It has a lot of thicken up to do, but it could get there someday. It depends on how low the trunk goes. Got this growth out here that I'll just snip off. But we got this possibility as a lower branch if we cut this thing all the way down to here. We have this growing and other branches going off the top. So we'll just cut it back off top here for now. But a great tree and a great find. This is probably, I would say, 5 to 10 year old tree by the thickness in this size 20 pot, I believe. Clearance on sale for 30 bucks. So this is a Japanese maple that is extremely old compared to my collection of 4, 5, 6 year old tree. This is probably 10, give or take. And it has some pretty good movement, pretty good design to it right now. And you know what? This is the joy of my bonsai, is just trying and experimenting. So I was able to go to my nursery this year and this day and buy all of these trees. I got 5 trees for under $100. Quite nice. So I'm going to keep taking some documentation, and then we'll see what's next. So I have my iPad Bonsai app. It's called Bonsai Album. So a quick little tour of the album. I got all my trees listed. They're in alphabetical order, kind of by species. So I've got my Amur maple on top just because I have Amur in there first. If you alphabetize them by the kind of tree, like maples, and then put the kind of maple afterwards, they'd be more in alphabetical order. But so you can order them in different ways. I got a lot of blue junipers here. And then we're gonna go down to the tree that we just got today right here, the Dwarf burning bush. So again, I put Dwarf burning bush first, so I put it there. I select that, and there we have our burning bush. I can pick the photograph that I chose. I can add more photographs. So you can see right here, you can add more photographs. And then down in here, this all I did today was give it a species name. And if I click over here, it'll pick up the ones that I can't pronounce. So the scientific name for the burning bush, and I always keep it on the burning bush because that's what I'm going to be able to identify it with most and share with other people. And then I have down here the plant date of October 17th today, but 5 years earlier, thinking it's about a 5-year plant. I got it over at Gerton's today, and I had it today, October 7th, 2019 for 10 bucks. And then I'll do everything else on the list later on. We've got things like height and trunk width and canopy, and we'll do that a little bit later. So that is the Bonsai album app, and I got all my trees in there ready to tell me what they are and when I've done things. So it's a little bit harder to see, but what I'd like to also show you is that at the bottom of the app here, you can also include pots into your collection and pick on a pot and see where you got it and how much you paid for it. And so that's kind of a nice feature. Then you have a log that you can enter your logs in. You have all the stats on your trees. Right now it shows that I have 52 bonsai into this app. And let's go one deeper. If I pick this tree right here, again, I've got all my stats here, but down the bottom there's a section for notes. Lets me know when I repotted this one last. So I put all my repots in my notes, repotted 3/10/18 after 36 hours in from the cold frame. So you can be as specific as you want on those notes, and you can get a lot of good information about your tree. So a really nice app that has a lot of good information, and the more you can show the details of this tree, is just the better you'll be when you're talking about it and maybe selling it down the road. So I have this Bali cherry tree, and it'll never be this long. I don't want it to be this long, so I'm gonna get rid of the bamboo. It's a nice piece of bamboo. Be able to use that in other capacities for my bonsai collections or displays. Pull this bonsai bamboo, get that right out of there. So now we have my tree. Again, which we're not going to have it much higher than this section right here. So I have to go get my bigger clippers. So here we go. For bigger branches, my concave cutters, I've wrecked a few pairs by trying to cut branches that are too thick, so we don't want to do that. I know this tree for sure is going to come down to here at least, so I'm going to go ahead and take that one, and I'll do a little research today and see if I can actually get some roots to grow on this thing. This time of year I doubt it, but I can be able to cut this tree right here, and I can let the bottom callus off, harden off, and see if it can regrow some new stuff. So I might be able to save that one. And then up here, we don't want it any higher than that. We don't need that one. This one wise off real nice right there. This has a lot of buds down below it. Don't need to worry about that much there. And for this winter, I'm just gonna let it go right there. A couple of quick cuts. I don't want to do any more. I don't want to cause any more undue damage. And I'm going to see how it's going to back bud. We have a back bud right here on the bark. I was saying earlier, I don't know how this is going to back bud. This is right here on the main trunk. So why wouldn't one grow right there later on this next spring? So we're going to just hope for the best. We'll leave that there. I think I'll actually cut it right above that one. And there we go. So right now, it's kind of a weird looking tree, but we're going to put this in my collection to stay nice and protected over the winter, and then we'll see what happens in the spring, and we'll do another video on that one. So we'll get rid of this guy. So the dwarf burning bush, right on its care card, says you can trim to shape as desired, but it doesn't say in winter, it doesn't say in spring or summer. Most of our trees we like to trim after the spring first flush of growth. We can trim it back in the middle of summer though, in growing season, or late spring, early summer. We can have a lot of sap release in a lot of trees. In the fall and winter months you can trim again. When it's later fall, most of the deciduous trees that lose their trees are not going to bleed as much sap, if at all, and so it's a little bit safer to cut before you get going for the winter. So this is the dwarf burning bush. I just want to shape this one a little bit smaller, so when it prepares to grow in the spring, I'm not going to waste energy on these high branches that I don't want anymore. I want the energy to be displaced throughout the tree, and so I want to keep most of the foliage, but I am going to cut about a third or more off right now just to kind of change the shape of this tree. And we will, of course, replant this one in the spring and get it into some kind of bonsai soil. And so we're just going to go ahead and make a couple cuts. So as always, I'm going to look at a tree that has multiple places to cut. If there's 4 branches growing out of there, I'm going to cut it down to 2, maybe even 1 in some cases. Or we're just going to go and get it a lot shorter because we know there's other branches that are, there's at least 1 or 2 buds at the bottom that we know can shoot out. We're going to cut it down to those buds. So this is just getting them all shorter. And I know that all of those branches that I just made shorter have 2 or more buds down below. So it's going to look like a drastic haircut, which it kind of is. But we know we have shoots down below, buds that are going to start growing in the new season. The interesting thing about these burning bushes to me is when they first grow, their branches come out more in kind of a square pattern because of the way their trunk looks. And then as it gets older, it looks more like a tree with that smoother bark down at the bottom. Cut off some of the dead ones. I'm going to cut off an interior, a couple branches that we know we just won't use. We won't keep. Just to give it a little cleanup here. This guy we might end up just getting rid of someday. I haven't even really found a front to this tree yet. I'm not going to worry about a front right now because I just want to make sure that this thing lasts through the winter. It's Minnesota hardy, so I can keep it outside. So just right there, in just a matter of a couple minutes, I was able to trim this tree down into a little bit more presentable tree-like looking bush going into a tree. Again, I'm not going to worry about the big cuts until the springtime. See if I put it in a pot in the spring and make sure that this thing grows and keeps going. So we have a nice little shape. I'm good. I don't have to really do much more to that tree. So we'll put that aside for later. So here we have a Norway spruce. And this one was an easy one for me to pick up off the lot because, well, the price wasn't bad at $7. I love the low price. But the trunk already had this kind of curve to it. It wasn't going to be this regular stick straight Christmas tree, and I didn't have to bend it right out of the gate. It's got a little bit of gnarly roots down here, which you won't be able to see with camera, but it's got a little bit of gnarly roots, so as I dig down here even further with my fingers, it'd be kind of a neat, interesting trunk down there with some early exposed roots. And I love going up to the North Shore of Minnesota and seeing all the pines in the forest and walking at the Superior hiking trail and seeing all the roots on the ground. I love that look. So I'm the kind of person who likes a lot of exposed roots on my bonsai trees. Even though I don't have a lot yet, I aspire to get there someday. And so when I see a tree that has some neat roots that are starting to curl around and poke themselves out, it could be for an interesting tree later on. Depending upon how the root structure is down below this little gnarly section, I might also be able to plant this over a slate or a rock sometime and have that show like up there in the North Shore as well. A lot of pine trees you work on once in the year and you're done. And so next year I probably will put this in a pot. And if I put this in a pot, bonsai pot, that's probably all I'll do. And you're not going to want to do a lot of trimming with this tree while you go ahead and repot it. So for this time of year, again with the sap running at a less speedy rate this time of year, I'm just going to go ahead and make one cut on this tree or two for the height of the tree and maybe this big branch out here, and so we can put more growth lower in the tree. If I keep one of these lower branches down here as a primary branch. They're a little bit low, but if I keep them as a primary branch, or even this new one, this little bud right here is growing, we want the energy to be there, not so much at the tip of the tree. So I'm gonna try to find a spot that I don't know what the front of this tree is gonna be yet. Some neat movement this way with the branches here and here, and this branch down here as a primary. So I know I want to keep at least to here. It gets real thick up here, but I think for right now we need to see some growth moving more upward, at least here. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that out. And so now I've lowered that tree pretty nice already. Now for perspective reasons, this huge top now looks really odd. It doesn't have that conical shape of kind of that triangle, whether it's more at an angle and goes deep this way or this way. There's still this big branch here sticking out. So we've got all these branches up here. I can cut these out and make one of these branches hopefully take the new lead, or one of these back here. If I want directional pruning, I'm going to pick the branch that's going to go back that way away from the tree. So I would cut this one here, there, and make my cut there. So I just took a little of the meat off of that right there. And for right now, if even this one and this one die back, I'm not so worried about that, because this whole branch has to come down smaller anyway down the road. Again, I'm not going to want to do much pruning next year, so I'm just doing a little bit right now, so this can kind of get ready and make it nice and solid for the winter, and then we'll be able to look at it in the spring. There's another section up here that has just a lot of branches growing out of it, so I'm going to go below that section. Got it a little bit shorter, and we're done. Now, I'm not going to do anything more to this tree because I don't want to create any more stress than it needs. We're going to let this thing go through the winter. So there's the pine. And our last one is the Degroot Arborvitaes. So this one's super thick right up in here and got this nice old apex here. Most of your Arborvitaes, this is 3 trees in one. You can't see the 3 trees because they're growing all together. We haven't done any trimming to show that. I don't know exactly how this trunk is going to be, but when I saw it in the shop, I saw a nice little angle and some nice ramification down by the nabari, nice root going down. And so this may be the front of my tree. I've got a couple of splits here to contend with and a third one right here, which makes the 3. I may cut it out to make a 2, but I'm not going to do that this year. So right now, the only thing I want to mess with it right now is I'm just going to clean it up. So I'm going to go in and take off some of these lower branches and get those off. Now you can kind of see the path of that tree a little bit better. But then all this little growth, this new growth within that first 1/4 inch to 1 inch of these major branches, I want to make sure I cut these out so I can see some growth. If I'm going to show some nice bark and every other tree branch pattern, I got to actually be able to see in there. So if I just peel off some of this last year's growth, these little ones in here, I'll be able to see how this tree can start to take shape in the coming year. I don't know where my apex is going to be until I break out more of this branch, but it's not going to be this tall probably next year. So I'm just going to go ahead and find a spot that I see a nice little, cut that off right there. Now this becomes my new leader. If I cut this one off here, this is my new leader right here. So now as that grows up into the sun, we got a tree. This will thin out next year when we repot it. And we'll just keep cleaning this thing out a little bit and then call it quits for the day. So in Minnesota, our evening lows have been below 50 for a couple of weeks now. So I brought in all my tropical plants. And one of my fun Christmas cactus bonsai that I have done after my video cohort, Nigel Saunders up in the UK. He has all kinds of trees that I am impressed with. He does a lot of bonsai of all kinds of different trees. So I thought I would try a Crypt Christmas cactus, and this year I brought it in. Right now there is over a dozen, 15 plus open buds and other buds that are working their way. So got some nice woodiness at the bottom there, starting to get more like a tree. A couple more years this will grow a little taller and thicker, and I'll still hopefully get these buds. Now inside my plant room, this tree will bud probably 2 or 3 more times yet this season down in my plant room. Wanted to show you that as a highlight after my trip to the nursery today. So that's it for this show. We'll see you next time for Dave's Bonsai. Well, that would be me, Dave Weiss. We'll catch you on the next one. Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. In the sense that I have a branch that splits into 2 shoots in here, so I'm probably going to cut this thing off right about here this fall. I've taken my knob cutter and I've gotten rid of some of that. So I just put them on the bottom, growing upwards into the bag. We fill it up with trees and then we water as we need to. We try to get rid of those air pockets.